This isn't just a story, it's the kind you'll think about at 2 a.m. If you're ready for the truth they never saw coming, hit that subscribe button now. And if something hits home, drop a like and tell me your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this deserve to be heard. Christmas dinner had almost wrapped up when my dad sat down his fork, locked eyes with me, and said, "You're a burden, Hannah. You can't stay here anymore." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. My mom let out this shaky, awkward laugh, like maybe it was a joke. But he didn't laugh. He just stared, waiting for me to break. The room went silent. My little sister, Sophie, froze mid-bite, her fork hovering in the air. I swallowed, set my fork down, and felt every muscle in my body tense. I'd paid for the lights, the heat, the food on the table. Without me, this house wouldn't even have running water. And now, on Christmas night, they were kicking me out like I was nothing. I didn't say anything right away. If I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure whether I'd explode or break down. My dad leaned back in his chair like he'd just won something. Like finally telling me off was some kind of victory. "I've been thinking about this for a long time," he said, voice flat. "You've overstayed your welcome. You need to move out." My mom shifted uncomfortably, but didn't argue. That silence hurt more than his words. "I'm 24 years old. I have a steady job. I could have moved out a long time ago, but I didn't because they needed me. I've been paying the electric bill, the internet, most of the groceries. I'm the reason the heat works in the middle of winter." "You're not a burden," Sophie blurted. Her voice was shaky, almost a whisper, but I caught it. Dad shot her a look. "Stay out of it." Sophie's eyes darted to me, wide and scared. She's 16, still in high school. If they could throw me out this easily, what would they do to her? I took a slow breath, pushing down the heat in my chest. "All right," I said finally. Dad smirked like my agreement was proof he was right. Mom kept picking at her mashed potatoes, eyes down. I stood, grabbed my plate, and carried it to the sink. Sophie was still frozen, her hands in her lap. I gave her a small nod, my way of telling her I was okay, even if I wasn't. I didn't stay to finish dinner. I went straight to my room and shut the door. My hands were shaking, but my decision was already made. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they weren't ready for what that really meant. They'd lose the bills I paid, the stability I provided, and I wasn't going to warn them. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and started packing in silence. Downstairs, I could hear muffled voices. Mom soft and uncertain, Dad sharp and certain. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. Sophie slipped inside, shutting it quickly behind her. Her eyes were red. "What the hell was that?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said, shoving my laptop into my bag. "But I'm leaving tomorrow." "That's insane. You pay for everything. They can't even afford food without you." "Not my problem anymore," I said, the words tasting bitter. She bit her lip. "Where are you going?" "I'll figure it out. I've got some savings. Maybe stay with Claire until I find a place." Sophie hesitated, then started. "Can I?" She stopped herself. I knew what she wanted to say. She wanted to come with me. "You know they'd never let that happen," I told her gently. She looked down. "Yeah." I zipped my suitcase. "You're going to be okay. Just keep your head down." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're going to regret this." I smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I know." The next morning, I woke up before anyone else. The house was still and cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I moved quietly, not wanting another scene. I hauled my bags downstairs, each step making the wood creak under my weight. I didn't look around. The living room didn't want to remember the years I'd spent keeping this place alive. Outside, the air bit at my cheeks. I loaded my car in silence, shutting the trunk with finality. Before I left, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and started cutting ties one by one. Electric, internet, water, Netflix, all of it under my name, all of it cancelled. Without me, they'd have about 3 weeks before everything went dark. I slid into the driver's seat, took one last look at the house, and felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, just relief. Seattle was 3 hours north. My best friend Claire lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, but she didn't hesitate when I called the night before. Her smile when she opened the door was warm and real, something I hadn't seen in my parents' house for years. "You're staying here as long as you need," she said, pulling me inside. Her couch sagged in the middle. Her dog, Charlie, kept staring at me like I was a new toy, and her roommate asked 3 separate times if I was planning to crash here forever. But none of that mattered. For the first time in years, no one was watching me like I owed them something. 3 days later, my phone started buzzing. 7 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, which was shocking considering he almost never called me. A handful of texts from Sophie. I ignored all of them until Sophie's last message lit up my screen. They're freaking out. The power's been cut off. I couldn't help the grin that spread across my face. They'd really thought the bills would magically pay themselves. Then another message from Sophie. Dad's losing his mind. He says, "You did something to the house." I could practically see him stomping around in the dark, yelling, while Mom cried about the Wi-Fi being down. An hour later, Mom called again. This time, I picked up. "Hannah," she said, her voice shaky, "we don't know what happened. The power's out, the internet's down, the water bill." "I didn't pay," I said simply. There was silence, and then her voice dropped. "You paid for these?" I almost laughed. "Who else did you think was paying for them?" She hesitated. "Your father said," and stopped herself. I knew exactly what he'd said. That everything would be fine without me. That the house would run like magic even after I left. "Not my problem anymore," I said and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. That they'd figure something out. Dad would finally get a job. Mom would work more hours. Maybe they'd even sell some of their things. But I was wrong. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke to 3 security alerts from my bank. Suspicious login attempt detected. My stomach knotted. I opened my laptop and pulled up my account. Nothing had been taken yet, but there it was. A string of failed password resets, each 1 minute apart. I didn't need a detective to figure out who it was. I grabbed my phone and called Sophie. She answered instantly, whispering like she didn't want to be overheard. "I was just about to call you," she said. "Dad's been on the computer all morning, slamming the keys like he's trying to break them. He keeps yelling about money." I closed my eyes. "Is he looking for my old passwords?" She hesitated. "Yeah, you remember how Mom used to keep that little notebook by the desk? He's going through it." Of course, that battered spiral-bound thing had every password I'd ever made as a teenager back when I didn't know better than to reuse them. I forced a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Tell him he's wasting his time." "Hannah," Sophie's voice dropped even lower, "he's saying you ruined us. That you did this on purpose." And she trailed off. "And what? I think he's going to do something stupid." Her words made my skin prickle. "What does that mean?" "He's pacing, slamming doors. Mom's crying, trying to calm him down, but he's not listening. He keeps saying she's not going to get away with this." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, pulse thumping in my temples. I had expected guilt trips. I had even expected begging. But revenge, that was a whole new level. "Lock your door," I told her. "If he tries anything crazy, call me right away." "Hannah, promise me." "I promise." The second we hung up, I changed every password. I had bank accounts, email, streaming services, even my Amazon login. Then I called my bank and told them someone was trying to hack me. They locked my account so tightly that even I had trouble getting in for a few hours. By the time I logged back in, my chest had stopped burning, but the unease lingered. I thought I'd cut them off clean. I thought I could just walk away, but James wasn't going to let me go that easily. It was 3 nights later when the pounding started. Claire and I were halfway through some trashy reality show when someone banged on the apartment door so hard the picture frames rattled. She muted the TV. "Are you expecting someone?" "No." My stomach sank. I already knew. Another bang, harder this time. Then a voice, deep and furious. "Hannah, open the door." Claire's eyes went wide. "Is that your dad?" I got up slowly, every muscle in my body tensed. I looked through the peephole. There he was, James, standing in the hallway, fists clenched, breathing like a bull about to charge. "Hannah," he barked again. "You think you can just walk away from this?" I stepped back from the door, my heart thumping. "Should I call the cops?" Claire asked. "Yes," I said without hesitation. My voice came out colder than I expected. She was already dialing when he slammed his fist into the door. "You owe us. You don't get to run off and leave us to starve." I kept my distance, phone in hand, listening as Claire gave the dispatcher our address. 2 minutes later, faint sirens cut through his shouting. The pounding stopped. I heard boots scuffing against the hallway carpet. Then another knock, this one calm. "Police, open up." Claire opened the door just enough to let them in. 2 officers moved past us and out into the hallway. "Sir, step back," one of them said firmly. James turned, face flushed, chest heaving. "She's my daughter. She thinks she can ruin us." "Sir, you need to leave the property," the officer interrupted. His eyes darted over their shoulders, locking onto mine. Pure hatred. "You did this." I didn't flinch. The officers cuffed him right there in the hallway. his voice echoing as they led him away. "You'll regret this, Hannah." When the door finally shut, the silence was deafening. Claire looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "Holy crap," she said softly. "That was intense." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It's not over, and I was right. It was Sophie who told me first. I was making coffee in Claire's tiny kitchen when my phone buzzed. A text from her, "Mom's selling your stuff." I froze, cup halfway to the counter. "What stuff?" I typed back. Her reply came fast. "Your laptop? Your old camera? Even your car." I actually laughed at first. It sounded too ridiculous. "My car's here," I wrote, a pause. Then, "No, it's not. It's in our driveway." 15 minutes later, I was on the road back to Portland. The closer I got, the harder I gripped the steering wheel. When I pulled up, my stomach dropped. My car was indeed there, driver's seat pushed back, glove compartment open, gas tank nearly empty. I barely had time to step out before the front door swung open. Patricia stood there with her arms crossed. "You called the cops on your father," she said, voice sharp. "You stole my car." I shot back. She scoffed. "It was just sitting there. You weren't using it." "It's my car, Mom. How did you even get it?" Her eyes flickered for just a second, enough for me to know she'd used the spare key I'd forgotten she had. "Give me the key," I said, my voice low. She didn't move. "If you don't, I'll call the police again." Her jaw tightened. Then, without a word, she stormed inside. A minute later, she returned, tossed the key at my chest. "It fell into the grass there. Happy." "No," I said flatly, stepping past her into the house. Sophie was in the hallway looking pale. "She took your laptop," she whispered, "and pawned it." I closed my eyes, counted to 3. When I opened them, I was already pulling my phone from my pocket. Patricia's head snapped toward me. "Don't you dare." "Yes, I'd like to report stolen property," I told the dispatcher, staring right at her, the color drained from her face. "You can't do this to me." "I'm your mother." "You already did it to yourself," I said. When the officers arrived, I handed them Sophie's statement, proof of purchase, and told them exactly which pawn shop had my laptop. They led Patricia outside in handcuffs while neighbors peeked through blinds. She was crying, screaming about being just a struggling mom. I stood in the doorway and watched without a word. Sophie came to stand beside me. "This is really happening, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "It is." The next morning, my phone buzzed before I was even out of bed. An unfamiliar number. A single message, "You're going to regret this." I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before it clicked. James. Someone had bailed him out. Probably one of his old drinking buddies or some distant relative who hadn't heard the full story. I called Sophie immediately. "He's out," she said, her voice tight. "Mom's losing it. She's crying 1 second and screaming the next. And Dad," she trailed off. "What about him?" "He said he's coming for you." I didn't waste time. "Stay inside. Lock your door. Call me if anything happens." Then I drove straight to the house. The cops from the day before were still outside finishing up paperwork on Patricia's arrest. "Can I go in and get the rest of my things?" I asked. One of them nodded. "As long as your sister's okay with it." Sophie was already moving toward the stairs. "Let's make it quick." We worked fast. Clothes, old books, even random stuff I'd left behind, thinking I'd come back for it someday. Not anymore. I was hauling the last box to my car when I saw headlights. A dark sedan turned onto the street and rolled toward us. My chest tightened. James pulled into the driveway, slammed the door, and started toward me with that same bull-like fury I'd seen at Claire's apartment. I put the box down and stood my ground. "You come near me," I said, my voice carrying over the cold air, "and I'll file a restraining order." His hands curled into fists. "You think you're better than us?" I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it rattled him. "I know I am." For a moment, I thought he might swing at me right there in front of the cops, but one of the officers stepped forward. "Sir, you need to leave the premises." James glared at me one last time, then stomped back to his car. He peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing. I loaded the last box into my trunk and slammed it shut. Sophie was standing on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. "I don't want to stay here," she said quietly. "I know," I told her. 2 more years. You can do it." Her eyes were glassy, but she nodded. "Call me when you get home." I got in my car, the engine rumbling beneath me. Patricia was still crying in the driveway, shouting my name as if that would change anything. I didn't look back. As I pulled away, I knew this wasn't just the end of a fight. This was the end of us. I didn't stop driving until the city lights of Portland were nothing but a fading glow in my rearview mirror. When I finally pulled into Claire's apartment lot, the exhaustion hit me all at once. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. I went upstairs, dropped the last box of my things in her living room, and stood there for a moment, staring at it. Everything I owned, reduced to a few battered cardboard boxes. And yet, I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, I made it official. I blocked both of my parents' numbers. I deleted them from every social media account. I changed my bank passwords again, updated my mailing address, and set up a P.O. box so nothing could find its way back to them. The next morning, I found a small studio apartment for rent just a few miles away from Claire's place. It wasn't much, just one room, a tiny kitchen, and a view of the alley, but it was mine. No shouting through thin walls, no slammed doors, no one standing over me, demanding I fix their mess. Sophie called me from her friend's phone later that night. "They're acting like nothing happened," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Dad's pretending he never got arrested. Mom's telling people you just left on bad terms." "Let them," I said. "If it makes them feel better, let them lie." She was quiet for a moment. "2 more years," she whispered. "You can do it," I told her, "and when you turn 18, I'll be there." When we hung up, I sat in my new apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. It wasn't home yet, but it was safe, and for now, that was enough. 2 years can change everything. Sophie turned 18 last spring. The day after her birthday, she stuffed her clothes into 2 duffel bags, grabbed the little savings she'd hidden away, and walked out. She moved in with a friend from school, then headed off to college that fall. I helped her furnish her dorm, bought her a second-hand laptop, and hugged her so tight she laughed. "You're free now," I told her. James and Patricia didn't fare as well. They lost the house within a year of me leaving. The bank took it after they fell behind on payments they couldn't keep up without my help. From what Sophie told me, they bounced between cheap rentals, burning through what little goodwill they had left with family and old friends. Eventually, they landed in a run-down apartment in a part of town you wouldn't walk through at night. They tried to reach me over the years. A Facebook message from an account with no profile picture, an envelope with no return address, a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I never responded because I still remembered that Christmas night. The way my father's voice didn't waver when he told me I was a burden. The way my mother looked down at her plate instead of speaking up for me. They made their choice and I made mine. And if you think this story hit deep, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe now, before you miss it. And if this made you feel something, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it too.